God bless everyone. Today, I will share the haunting testimony of Sophia, a devoted mother whose story will pierce your heart and stir your soul. Sophia embarked on a terrifying journey beyond this life, confronting the sins that led her to the chilling depths of hell. Her tale unveils the devastating consequences of neglecting her children's spiritual path and the unbearable torment that followed. Now, I will read Sophia's letter exactly as she wrote it, revealing her sins and the shocking truth about the person she encountered on this dark, harrowing path. I am Sophia, a mother of two from a small, close-knit town in Atlanta, where life seemed simple, predictable, and rooted in tradition. Sundays were sacred, filled with the bustling joy of church services, where the town gathered as one family under the watchful eyes of God. My days were spent caring for my children, tending to our home, and finding comfort in the familiar rhythms of small-town life. To anyone looking from the outside, I was the image of a devoted mother and a dutiful Christian, living a life that appeared fulfilling and righteous. Yet, as I reflect on those years, I realize how shallow my understanding of true devotion had been. I believed that providing for my family, ensuring their needs were met, and attending church on Sundays were enough to fulfill my role. I never questioned the deeper responsibilities of nurturing my children's souls or guiding them on a spiritual journey. My days were consumed by routines, and my faith was merely woven into the fabric of my life, not the foundation. I didn't see the cracks forming beneath the surface of what I thought was a solid, faithful existence. Looking back now, I shudder at how blind I was to the reality that awaited me. My seemingly ordinary life, filled with the warmth of family and community, was a facade hiding the seeds of a truth I was unprepared to face. Little did I know that the choices I made, the guidance I failed to provide, and the spiritual neglect I allowed to grow would lead me to a moment so dark and harrowing that it would forever change the course of my life and my soul. But that moment was coming, and nothing could have prepared me for the horrors I would witness and the truths I would confront. It was a crisp autumn day in 2023, the kind of day that feels serene and comforting, with golden leaves dancing in the breeze and the sun casting a gentle glow over the streets of our small town. My morning had been like any other, mundane, routine, and filled with the simple tasks of life. I set out for the market, my mind preoccupied with a mental list of errands. As I stepped onto the crosswalk, the world around me seemed so ordinary, so familiar. But in an instant, everything changed. A car, speeding down the road, came hurtling toward me. The screeching of brakes pierced the air, but it was too late. I froze, unable to move, as if time itself had conspired against me. The impact was like an explosion, hurling my body into the air before slamming me onto the cold, unyielding asphalt. At first, all I could register was pain, searing, sharp, and all-consuming. But then, something strange began to happen. The weight of my body faded, the agony dissipating like smoke in the wind. A profound stillness took over as I found myself floating above the scene. I saw my own lifeless form sprawled on the street below, surrounded by panicked onlookers and the wail of approaching sirens. But none of it felt real anymore. The world I had known seemed distant, as if separated by an invisible veil. My soul felt light, yet heavy with an unfamiliar dread. Something was pulling me, not upward, as one might expect, but into a cold, suffocating darkness. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would reveal truths I was never ready to face. What lay ahead was far more terrifying than the accident itself. As I was pulled into the suffocating darkness, an unbearable weight surrounded me, pressing down on my soul. It was a void unlike anything I could have imagined, cold, oppressive, and endless. Whispers began to rise from the depths, haunting and unintelligible, yet filled with a menace that chilled me to the core. The air grew heavier with each passing moment, as if the darkness itself was alive and feeding on my fear. Suddenly, through the consuming blackness, I saw it. A massive, ominous door. Its surface seemed to writhe as though it were alive, and a deep, resonating voice called out from behind it. The voice was both commanding and terrifying, asking the question that pierced straight into my heart. Why are you here? The door creaked open, and with it, the whispers fell silent, replaced by scenes that ripped me apart. I was shown my son Jack, my precious boy, my firstborn. But he wasn't the bright, happy child I remembered. I saw a young man lost in despair, his eyes hollow and his spirit crushed. The scenes played out like a nightmare. He was consumed by addiction, his body frail and his soul seemingly extinguished. The life I had tried to build for him was nowhere to be found in his world. I watched in horror as he drifted further from everything I believed was good and right. But the most devastating realization was that I had pushed him there, not through malice, but through neglect. I had failed to guide him toward faith, to answer his questions, or to lead by example. Instead, I had been consumed by my own distractions, assuming he would find his way without me. As the scenes unfolded, the weight of my guilt grew unbearable. Every choice I had made, every moment I had overlooked came crashing down on me. I saw how my lack of spiritual guidance left Jack vulnerable to the temptations and emptiness of the world. I had been blind to his struggles, too focused on the surface of our lives to recognize the cracks beneath. The voice returned, harsher now, cutting through my self-deception. Your sins are not just your own. You passed them to your child. Those words struck like a dagger, leaving me broken and gasping for redemption. But the torment wasn't over. The darkness began to shift again, hinting at more revelations to come. I could feel that this was only the beginning of my judgment, and what awaited me next would force me to confront even deeper truths about myself. The darkness enveloping me was unlike anything I could have imagined, thick, cold, and alive with a sinister energy that pressed down on my soul. The air felt heavy, as though every breath drew in more of the despair that surrounded me. Whispers slithered through the void, unintelligible yet filled with venom, carrying accusations I didn't yet understand. The ground beneath me was unsteady, shifting like shadows of regret taking form, and every step I took sank deeper into an unseen abyss. The weight of guilt was crushing, pulling me downward as if my very soul was being judged and sentenced. This was not merely a place, it was the embodiment of every sin, regret, and failure that I had ignored in life, now reflected back at me with brutal clarity. Through the suffocating darkness, visions began to appear. At first, they were distant, blurry, and surreal, but as they grew clearer, I recognized the faces, mothers like me, condemned to this eternal torment for sins I now understood too well. I saw one mother weeping, her face twisted with anguish as she watched the consequences of her neglect play out in the lives of her children. Another was surrounded by the empty symbols of her worldly desires, luxury, wealth, and status, none of which could save her now. There were others consumed by their hatred, their bitterness poisoning not only their own souls, but the lives of their children, who were left fractured and lost. Each vision was like a mirror, forcing me to see the reflection of my own failures in their suffering. The torment they endured was unbearable, yet inescapable, their cries echoing through the void and piercing my heart. Each scene drove the weight of my own guilt deeper. The realization that I shared in their sins, neglecting what truly mattered, allowing distractions to blind me to my responsibilities, was like a knife twisting in my chest. Every vision felt personal, as if I was living their agony alongside them, experiencing the pain of their eternal regrets. But as horrifying as these glimpses were, I knew they were only the beginning. The darkness around me seemed to shift again, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. I felt the pull of something even darker, something that promised to uncover even deeper truths. My torment had not yet reached its peak, and what lay ahead would shatter the fragile hope I still clung to. As I sank deeper into the suffocating despair of my own guilt, a sudden light broke through the darkness. It was blinding and pure, unlike anything I had ever seen. The whispers ceased, and the weight that had crushed my soul lifted in the presence of this radiant glow. In the midst of this brilliance stood Jesus, his form both awe-inspiring and gentle. His eyes met mine, filled with compassion that reached into the depths of my broken spirit. "Sophia," he said, his voice resonating with love and authority, "your pain is real and your repentance is sincere. I forgive you." Tears streamed down my face as I fell to my knees before him, overwhelmed by the enormity of his grace. But his expression grew serious as he continued, "You are not alone in this neglect. Many mothers have forgotten to nurture the souls of their children. They care for their bodies, but leave their spirits empty." His words cut deep, not out of condemnation, but as a truth I could no longer ignore. He extended his hand to me, his voice tender yet firm. "Go back, Sophia. Make it right." The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed. The world around me was sterile and bright, a stark contrast to the darkness I had just escaped. My body ached, but the heaviness in my soul had been replaced with a newfound clarity and determination. I had been given a second chance, not just at life, but at redemption. My mind immediately turned to Jack, to the horrifying visions of his future that I had been shown. I knew I couldn't waste another moment. When he walked into the room, his face pale with worry, I reached for his hand. "Jack," I said, my voice trembling but resolute, "I love you more than anything, and I promise things are going to be different." His eyes filled with confusion and hesitation, but I could see a spark of hope begin to flicker. That moment was the start of a journey I knew would be long and difficult, but it was a path I was determined to take. The days that followed were filled with challenges, yet every small victory felt like a miracle. At first, Jack resisted, clinging to the habits and influences that had dulled his spirit. But I met him with patience, love, and understanding. I made a conscious effort to listen to him, to truly see him in a way I hadn't before. Slowly, his defenses began to crumble. He spent less time immersed in the emptiness of his old habits and started exploring the faith he had once dismissed. Together, we returned to church, rekindling a sense of community and purpose. I also began to redefine my role as a mother, prioritizing not just his physical needs, but his spiritual growth as well. Watching Jack take these first steps toward a new life filled me with hope, but I knew our journey wasn't over. The lessons I had learned, the truths I had seen, were not just for us. They were meant to be shared. There was more to uncover, more to do, and a greater purpose waiting just ahead. Looking back, I see my mistakes with clarity, but I also feel the overwhelming mercy and guidance of Jesus, who has shown me the path to redemption. His love reminds me that no matter how far we've strayed, there is always hope. Love, forgiveness, and spiritual guidance are the greatest gifts we can offer our children and ourselves. Take a moment to reflect on your own life, seek the grace of forgiveness, and let Sophia's story inspire you to act. If this message touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Together, we can spread hope and faith to those who need it most.